Steven Stamp is a lacrosse insider. He's with Lacrosse Link. He does NLL play-by-play, and he joins us today from Ontario as we can bring him on. Hey, Steven, how you doing, my man? Happy Friday to you.
Not bad. Thanks for having me on. Great to get to chat. Fun to listen to Jeff Fairholm.
It's always fun to listen to my favorite Rough Rider ever, and I got to be honest with you, it's always fun to talk lacrosse, Canada's national sport, which everybody seems to know that it is Canada's national sport. Let me ask you this, just as the lacrosse insider, and I have some specific questions for you from Lee Genier, who's part of our live audience here today, or he's part of our crew. But how has lacrosse in this country made it through the pandemic?
Oh, it's been tough. It's been really tough on all the lacrosse leagues across Canada. I mean, you look in Alberta, you had 7 or 8 teams have already announced they're not playing this summer. You've got all kinds of challenges, I think, for leagues across the country, but we're starting to see things happen. The WLA had their draft a little while ago. The BC Junior League, the Ontario Junior League is having their draft coming up. Major Series Lacrosse draft is coming up. Things are going, but it's a challenge. It's been tough for everybody. So many kids not playing, people not getting to play. It's been really rough, and I think it's going to take a while to get back into it. But the thing we did see last summer with the places where they were able to play a bit is the passion was still there. And I've been at some Arena Lacrosse League games in the last few weeks doing play-by-play, and I'll tell you, the fans are out. They're excited. We're getting good crowds, and people are stoked to get to be back out watching live lacrosse. So I think it's going to come back, but man, it's been a struggle like everything else.
Yeah. Well, it was one heck of a party in the Saddledome last Friday night for the Calgary-Vancouver game, which was nationally televised on TSN. What an unbelievable game that was for a national audience. But how about this? The biggest news of the week, the commissioner of the NLL, Nick Sakiewicz, stepping down. Shocked me. I love Nick. I'm sad to see him go. What can you tell us about that news, that move?
It was really surprising for everyone. I don't think it was expected that he'd leave now. He had talked earlier about, not wanting to be around forever, that he had a plan to set things up, get things going in a direction that he wanted, that he really felt like the league needed to be headed, and then kind of ride off into the sunset and leave it in what he felt were good hands. I just don't think anybody was expecting it now. You've got the CBA, I think, has to be a factor with the players having opted out last year. The PLPA or the NLLPA having opted out. So, maybe they're thinking, well, let's find a new commissioner to head into the negotiations that have to be done when the season ends. But yeah, it was pretty surprising. And I think honestly, I was thinking about this, it's similar to a trade or a draft that you can't determine immediately how it went. I mean, so much positive stuff has happened, but there have been massive challenges through the pandemic. So, we'll look back in a while and be able to say, hey, Nick Sakiewicz really set this league off on a great foot and on track for something. Or, man, could they, have they been able to sustain the momentum? And that's been challenging. I think the work is happening to get things going again in a positive direction. I think getting through this season is a huge step with all the challenges. So many guys have been on COVID protocol, but the league is handling it really well. So, yeah, surprising, but it was going to come.
Well, he was always great to us. That's all that I can say, and that's how I form my opinion on people. By the way, Chris Fox is watching from the Canadian Lacrosse League, and he talks about the 2022 IIJL World Junior Championships. We were there last August in Winnipeg, broadcasting live. Empty barn, unfortunately, but they pulled it off, and the games were great. They're going to do it again this summer. How important is that particular tournament, the Lacrosse World Juniors, and what did it mean that they were able to pull it off, at least in the pandemic last year?
I think it was great. I mean, it's a really fun tournament. I've called the play-by-play at a couple of them now. Obviously, I was there in Winnipeg and plan to be again this year. And I think it was huge. For one thing, that marked the return of lacrosse to TSN. It had been off the network for several years, right? And we were really excited. I had Brian Shanahan with me, and we're doing the play. And, it was pretty exciting. I think it's a real opportunity for some players to showcase themselves when they might not otherwise be able to. Of course, the tournaments generally happen while some of the junior A leagues are in the last half of their playoffs. So there are some players who aren't available, but there are some really good players, as you got to see, as we've seen, who have really raised their stock. I think, you're talking about the Calgary game. Hayden Dixon is a guy who really boosted his stock by playing very well in the World Juniors. Guys like Lane Rushka and I think Brody Harris, who's a guy I think can really come on. He's on the Vancouver practice squad. There's so many players. Tanner Buck, a great example, who have just shown that they can elevate their game, right? You've seen Bucky play. He's really something.
He was highlight of the night, I think, on TSN during that tournament. He was the talk of the tournament for the time that I was there, and I appreciate the work with Chris Fox and welcoming us back there this year. There are so many things I can get with you, Stephen, but 6 games Saturday night in the NLL. You know what they all are, so I won't read them off, but is there one that's a little more delicious than the others in your mind? What's the marquee matchup here this weekend in the NLL?
I think you've already mentioned it, honestly, is the Saskatchewan-Colorado rematch. I think, terrific game last week. You're seeing some really interesting storylines with Colorado probably overperforming based on what we expected coming into the season. They've looked really good. They've got Dylan Ward. You've got a Saskatchewan club that I don't know many people expected them to be sitting at 2-6 and outside of playoff position right now. And, as we hit the midway point, we'll actually hit the midway point of the season on Saturday night. And as the half the game's being played, I think it's a huge game. Saskatchewan can't afford to keep falling back behind, but they outshot Colorado 57-40 last week. And Dylan Ward was terrific. Ryan Lee was terrific. Outside of that, Saskatchewan probably outplayed Colorado last week, but another loss, pretty crushing. So they go get Eric Penny. That's a big acquisition. We'll see how big an acquisition. There's not a lot of goalies on the market. Goaltending is stretched pretty thin with the expansion of the league, and it's a position that's really challenged right now. So will Eric Penny make a difference? He had an .833 save percentage in the one game he did start for Philadelphia when he had to sub in for Zach Higgins. He was fantastic, but career-wise, he's been a pretty good goalie. He's going to need to be big for them, I think, to get things turned around.
I love it. It's a player's market. There's too many teams for players. That's good news for goalies. By the way, just before I let you go, Stephen, your guy Lee Genier is here, and he said to say hey, and he told me to ask you about Lacrosse Link. What should our viewers know about Lacrosse Link?
Lacrosse Link is something we started up last year. It's a weekly show. It's on Lac Sports Network. It's also on YouTube, so just go check it out on YouTube and look up all the episodes. And I'm the host. We have just news and interviews from all around the world of lacrosse. Obviously, very NLL focused right now. We've had someone from Australia talking about a new box that they built down near Melbourne. I've had guests from Czech Republic. We look all across Canada, across. It's not just box lacrosse. We get some field and some sixes going. So there's lots to check out. A couple of interviews every week and a rundown where we touch on half a dozen topics around the world of lacrosse. So love you to check it out.
All right, Stephen. Well, I appreciate the time. This has been awesome. Let's do it again. You're clearly the lacrosse guy. We love the sport. We'll be talking lots about it here in the months ahead. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.
Thanks, you too. Looking forward to it.
Stephen Stamp, lacrosse insider from Peterborough, Ontario, and, of course, as you just heard, the host of Lacrosse Link joining us. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.